So I think there are just different types of innovation, and people sometimes use it as a general term. So you really need to differentiate between efficiency innovation, sustaining innovation, and breakthrough innovation, growth innovation. But once you've done that, you also want to ask yourself, how can you have an impact in the world? You know, either profit-wise if that's all you're doing, but at this conference we're really also about impact. And you can do that by creating better processes that have a good environmental impact footprint, but also business models, and I think that's where the real potential lies. Business models where profit and impact are in harmony. Often we think it's either or. Well, it doesn't have to be, and that's where business model innovation has huge potential. You can figure out new business models where you can have a positive impact in the world, environmentally, socially, and at the same time, the more impact you have, the more profit you make. Those are the business model innovations that you really want to explore. That goes light years beyond corporate social responsibility, which is the easiest thing to cut when you're in a crisis. Well, if the business model is in harmony, you can't cut it because you're killing your business. So there's one I like, which unfortunately went bankrupt for other reasons, but Sun Edison, which is a company created by Jigar Shah, he was really, when he started as an entrepreneur, was really into, I want to change the world so we use more solar energy. And what he basically did is create a business model where the more profit he would make, the more companies would actually use solar power in figuring out that right business model. So this is really a breakthrough because profit and impact, green energy, was in harmony. And those are the kinds of business model you would want to look for. Another example, which I think is phenomenal, is at Unilever, where Paul Polman, it's a large company where they say, no compromise. We want to think for the long term. We want to have a positive impact in the world. And every innovation we do cannot just be about money. It has to be about money. We're business and growth, but it also has to be about impact. So combining those is phenomenal. So that's what Yves Pinner, my co-author, calls the design constraints, the playground. And there the playground is not just profit. The playground is really also about impact. And we need leaders like that push the boundaries and say, yes, it's about profit, but it's also about something very important, keeping our planet healthy. So I would almost put it the other way around, like the more profit the business model makes, the more impact it has. So it's not, impact is not an add-on, but it's core to the business model. But the profit remains the driver, which if you are a company, there's no way around it. You're still there, to make money in one way or another. But I don't think making money needs to be, a bad thing as long as, it does have a positive impact. So again, it's in harmony. And when it comes to innovation, it's all about testing ideas. So business plans are the best way to kind of describe in detail a fantasy, and then you put money into it because it looks so good, it's so shiny that you're going to invest in it. So you're making a big bet. But actually, that's the riskiest thing you could do. In innovation, we know we need to make a lot of small bets, see which small bets pay off, and then invest in those that actually show some potential. So we gradually increase our investments the more we learn. So it's really not about business plans, great ideas, and big bets. It's about, okay, how do we turn ideas into value propositions that customers want and business models that can work? And that's more like a venture capital approach where you spread your bets. Business plans are a good instrument to implement. So when you're building a new factory, a new supply chain, and growing your sales force, business plans are great because it's an execution document, an implementation document. But when we talk about innovation, we're facing something different. Like, uncertainty is very high. We don't know if that idea is going to work. It's very risky. So we need a different approach. It's not an implementation or management problem. It's actually a search problem. So the KPIs need to be different. The skills need to be different. And the good news is we can learn those things. It's not about the creative genius. It's actually about process and ability to innovate. So that is something that we can make happen.
But different process.
Very different, fundamentally different, and it's not replacing the other processes. You need two cultures under one roof. Many of them don't work, and they actually become expensive failures. So my favorite still is Flow TV, big bet by Qualcomm. And nothing against Qualcomm, but big bets don't work. So what happened is they tried to create this mobile TV across the United States. And, well, they didn't test the ideas, and they had to fire the few customers that they had. It was a very expensive, undertaking, over $1 billion. What you really want to do is figure out, okay, where do I want to invest by having a portfolio of ideas. And ultimately, when you have a portfolio and you make gradual investments in those that show potential, you're going to weed out the bad ideas and you're going to weed out the teams that are not real entrepreneurs, because not everybody is good at entrepreneurship. But you will be able, through this portfolio approach, to select the good ones. But it does mean you're investing in those that won't succeed. So you can't pick the winners. And that's the difference with management. When you're managing a business, you know the variables. Failure is not an option. But when you're innovating, failure is not just an option, it's very likely to happen, so you need to deal with it, and you do it by spreading your risks. You invest in failure. And sometimes, we might want to change the term and call those that fail, not failures, but nearlings. They nearly made it. And that's actually a real challenge, because we know that we need teams that won't make it to actually filter out those that will make it. So how do we tell them, you're not a failure? You're not getting more investment because what you're working on doesn't show enough potential. We need to celebrate those teams, but it's because they're explorers, and not every explorer will find a new continent. And that's one of the things we need to measure. So we need to measure how much we reduced risk, and an ability that companies don't have today, I think, is to kill projects. So we need to say, great, congratulations, you have just proven that this idea is not going to work, we're going to kill it, and you helped do this. That is actually very substantial, because it means we didn't waste millions of dollars in an idea that won't work. So they're actually saving the company money because we're not investing in something that's not going to work. So if you take Nespresso's, probably, they ended up with a great business model that, works really well today, but the journey that they took was actually a pretty long one, and they almost went bankrupt in the process. So what they did then, we can today do a lot faster, which what we call innovation sprints, coming from the whole lean startup movement with Eric Ries and Steve Blank. We need to apply those methods systematically. Back then, the teams didn't know, so they ended up with a great business model, but there was also a lot of luck involved, and the period was much longer. Today, if you take companies like Amazon, they're a lot more systematic about experimentation, and they designed that into their DNA. So what we really should start to see in companies is a space, and a powerful space, not just a garage. I think garages are hidden somewhere, basements. No, a space where people can experiment and learn and go fast, where they have autonomy to work differently, different processes, different culture, different KPIs, to actually come up with things. So Amazon Web Services is not an accident. Nespresso was a lucky one. It was a great one, but a lucky one. Amazon Web Services is not a lucky one. But now, how did that happen? You have a leader, Jeff Bezos, who says, well, we need to actually fail to create Amazon Web Services. If we don't have things that don't work, we're never going to discover the things that work. So Jeff Bezos likes to say, Amazon is the best place in the world to fail. How many CEOs do you hear saying, my company is the best place in the world to fail? But what's the message there? When I build a new warehouse, that's not good failure. But when I'm experimenting with new ideas, I need to accept that there will be failures. Because we say, innovation and process are oxymorons. I think it's quite the contrary. And there are a couple of myths we need to destroy in innovation, that innovation is related to creative genius. No, it's not. It's related to process. Guess what? People who go to design school, they're trained for years to prototype, experiment, try out things, trial and error. Right? At business school, we're only starting to learn that, for the really new and wicked problems, we need a similar approach. It's not about decision making, it's about designing possibilities, right? Roger Martin talks about this a lot. I think the big, differentiation today happens in management innovation. How did I create a better ecosystem to innovate in my company? I would say Nestlé is a good example of efficiency innovation, some sustaining innovation. They've been around for 150 years. You don't just do that like that. A lot of companies disappeared, right? Where I'd be a bit worried for Nestlé as a Swiss is that now that's not enough anymore. It's not enough anymore. And you can already see the growth numbers going back. They used to hit 6% growth. Markets are saturated, difficult, right? So grooming your existing portfolio is not enough anymore. you need to think about breakthrough innovation. You need to create those Amazon Web Services. And I wouldn't say Nestle is a good candidate for that. And I think Unilever is really getting there. They have huge interest in business model innovation. We've been talking to them a lot. So what they're already world class at is efficiency innovation that has a positive environmental impact, sustaining innovation that has a positive environmental impact. The next step now is growth innovation that also has a positive environmental impact and sustainability. And I think they'll get there because it's a decision that you need to make, and then you need to stick to that decision. And Unilever is doing that and not compromising on impact. They say profit, yes, we need that. We're a public company. We can't not make profit. We have to promise growth, but not at the expense of the planet, but in harmony. And that's why I think they're on to a real mission, but I also believe they will be able to do it because they're pursuing the right challenges. I don't think the differentiation lies in the environmental impact, in the sense that at the end of the day, they're not selling impact. They want to do it and they should do it. As a company, we have a social responsibility. But at the end of the day, it's how do I create value for customers? And how do I create business models that work? So what you really want is to sell stuff that creates value for customers and have an impact, but not sell impact. Because it can be that you differentiate, oh, look, my product is better than others. But we now know that a lot of consumers, unfortunately, don't care. So what happens if your customers say, we don't care? You're just going to stop having an environmental impact? So I don't think that should be the yardstick. I think the yardstick should be, we're creating value for customers and we're having an impact, regardless if customers care or not. Because otherwise you're depending on customers and not your decision. You see what I mean? So I agree it's fascinating, but if you take that as a yardstick, if customers don't care, you're not going to care. You should care, and you should just focus on creating value for customers. Sometimes it's by showing the environmental impact, sometimes it's not, but you still need to have that impact. You see what I mean? Yeah. Thinkers 50 is a great place for great ideas and great thinkers to thrive and actually distribute their ideas. It's also a great place to be when you want to learn about ideas. It's a great experience because people are really enthusiastic. You can see people are participating, so really fun experience.